Which is bigger, Dan Bilzerian's Instagram follower count or Ignite International Brands' accumulated revenue since the company started in 2017? Now, before I get around to eventually answering that question, I should probably try to give you guys a little bit of context and catch up my community that maybe has no idea who Dan Bilzerian is, or maybe who Ignite International Brands is. I'm going to firstly answer arguably the more easy one, and that is, who is Ignite International Brands? Like I mentioned before, it was founded in 2017. It's kind of like a murky, like how it got started, how it became a public company. I think it was a reverse takeover in the Canadian market. But overall, they wanted to be kind of a catalyst and a premium cannabis brand. They wanted to help kind of grow the cannabis market, legitimize the cannabis market as the business has grown and evolved and changed over time. They are now within other categories. Those include some CBD categories, both ingestible. I think there's also maybe some beauty or skincare products as well. Before mentioned cannabis, currently in terms of like THC, I believe that's only in Canada. There's also some alcoholic beverages, I think mainly vodka. There's also non-alcoholic beverages. Maybe they had a water beverage for a while, but they also have an energy drink product. They also have some synthetic nicotine products, and they also sell apparel. Now, maybe for the tougher of the two, who is Dan Bilzerian? He is the CEO of Ignite International Brands. That is at least what it says on paper. Now, if you are a CPG analyst or somebody that pays attention to the cannabis industry, you wouldn't know of him because of his business prowess. Instead, you know Dan Bilzerian because he is an internet personality, and I think he has well over like 30 million followers on Instagram. I don't know how many he has across all the other platforms. He has quite the lavish lifestyle, quite the polarizing lifestyle, and despite what I might think about any of those lifestyles, this video is not about those, though Dan Bilzerian will be mentioned throughout this video because he's obviously a central figure. I keep all of the kind of personal stuff as far away from these videos as I can. My videos as a whole really focus on the business and how we can pull some insights and hopefully give you guys some good information based on some of the good and bad that Ignite has done in the market over the last couple of years. Just to kind of start this video out, and it is going to be short on like financial performance. They are a publicly traded company in Canada. You guys can look up their financial statements. All the numbers that I do give you guys in this is in Canadian dollars. I didn't do the conversions, but they did just recently file their 2020 quarter 3 earnings. From a sales revenue perspective, they had $1.7 million in quarter 3 revenue. That was down 49% year over year. Looks really bad, but if we take this from more like a first 9 months of 2020 perspective, they had sales revenue of $6.6 million, and that was only down 6% on a year over year basis. Just looking at those sales numbers, you might be thinking, wow, I would have thought they would have been higher, because you see on face value a lot of the Instagram followers and things like that. You think he should probably be doing a lot more revenue. But that's not really the story here. That's not what's going to shock you in terms of those low sales numbers. There's another metric that's probably a little bit more important to think about, and that is that they spent in 2020 about $2.77 on marketing and like sales and general administrative costs to produce every $1 of sales. Now that's actually much better than they did in 2019. If we look at 2019 sales, they had $9.1 million in Canadian dollars of sales, but they actually had a net loss of just under $69 million. Now I'll dig into some of those like bloated operating costs a little bit later into the video, but just to answer the question of like how they stayed in business with having a loss of $69 million, they were able to raise capital. They've done pretty decent at raising capital over these last couple of years, probably because a lot of people want to be friends with Dan Bilzerian. So they were able to find investors to meet that same standard in terms of around $70 million in investment capital, either in share issuance or convertible debt or just traditional debt. So if you look at this from like a dilution or capitalization effect, 87 million outstanding shares to somewhere between 3 and 4x that currently. And while I was digging through some research for this video, just to make sure I had some numbers and things correctly, I actually came across a snippet of commentary from Dan Bilzerian in terms of some of the losses and how he compared those accumulated losses to Uber, and how he said Uber's worth somewhere around $80 billion. That's a dated number in terms of where they are at today. And I think he mentioned they lost $5 billion in one quarter, and really was just trying to justify why Ignite was losing money. But I think either Dan Bilzerian, is not all that aware of key differences in businesses, or he just thinks that his followers and maybe shareholders or anybody asking questions are stupid. That might be more likely the case. Him comparing Uber and Ignite is just plain silly. The businesses are no more different than those two businesses. Something like Uber, why they lose so much money is they're trying to solve huge human inefficiencies in terms of like current operating models, legacy operating models. And the only way to do that, and the only way to actually win that like zero-sum game or maybe an A-B competitor game, is you have to really spend ahead. You need to get scale into the system to ever get any type of profitability. So because of that, investors are willing to wait for that capital to return to them, because they know if they were able to solve any of those problems, they're going to be rewarded handsomely. That's not anything similar to a cannabis company or a beverage company or anything like that. This is not something where they're trying to solve huge problems. These products, though as differentiated as maybe anybody at Ignite might think they're very similar substitutes to any other product that's in the market. And because of that, you can't be losing that kind of money up front. I have been in the industry for a while, especially if you're thinking about this in beverage or some of the other like capital intensive CPG spaces. Yeah, you do need to raise capital and you do need to spend, especially in some of the nascent new markets, but not at the level that Ignite has spent so far. You start to think like what's going on here, and I kind of want to highlight a bunch of different key factors in terms of what I think is going on. Obviously, I'm not a consultant for the business. This is just my opinion on the business and what I can find and search, and my experience within these categories of CPG and consumer products. But first one is like they've had some different, I would say like operating model, strategy, distractions. They've changed up some different things. First of all, Ignite is selling into a ton of different categories. Those different categories all need specialized salespeople. They need different capabilities. Sometimes they need to be marketed differently. The sales partners, the sales strategies, all those things, a lot of times are much different. And because of that, you're seeing like bloated inventory. I think they have about $8.5 million in total inventory at current sales rate. That's somewhere around 12 months of inventory. That's not what you want. And that's mostly because they probably just have so many different SKUs, so many different categories that inventory is building up. They need to turn that inventory into cash. That is not a very efficient cash conversion cycle that they have currently. They've also had some turnover in terms of their distributors, some of their manufacturers, some of their licensing partners. I think in some of the international markets, they've had changeover in terms of how they're doing business. All of these things have created inefficiencies. They've created slowdowns, in some cases even caused them to shut down for a few months. That has obviously hurt their business, both from a momentum standpoint and just from like a sales perspective. But I guess the one positive to all this is that a lot of these things have been happening over the last couple of months. So maybe current leadership is starting to clean up a lot of the Ignite business strategy, operating strategy. Now, just looking at just leadership as a whole, and maybe why the current leadership hopefully going to do a lot better, is that they've had a lot of turnover in their leadership. I think in the 4 years or so that they've been in business, they've had 4 presidents. I think they've also had 4 sets of like leadership team members. The president, in my assumption, is that running the day-to-day business, though Dan Bilzerian is the CEO, I don't think he's handling any of the day-to-day business. That's not a diss on Dan Bilzerian or anything like that. There's a lot of businesses that have this like figurehead or person that has the CEO title that, is relinquishing some of that day-to-day operating work to somebody that's more capable. But a lot of that extreme turnover on the leadership team makes you kind of think and scratch your head a little bit and wonder what out of these like multiple assumptions or things that could be happening. Could it be somebody, like Dan Bilzerian or maybe the board that has unrealistic expectations for these leadership team members? Maybe, maybe not. Could it be that these leadership team members have oversold themselves? Their resume looks much better than what they actually can do in the business. That could be true or might not be true as well. I've also been involved with a lot of like upstart, cool hip brands that these older executives come in and they end up getting caught up into some of that cool stuff that's happening, and maybe that got them into trouble. Could that be a case? I don't know. Or it could be, maybe that there's some moral or ethical things that they're not willing to do and they end up just either leaving the business or getting fired. Again, could happen, could not happen. I'm not exactly sure what combination, if any of those are true or not, but all that extreme turnover makes you think something's going on. Obviously, somebody's not performing or somebody's not meeting expectations or whatever those other reasons that I mentioned. Another area of concern, or at least one that gets a lot of publicity, is the blurred lines of Dan Bilzerian's lifestyle, and that lifestyle being the kind of focus or the premise behind Ignite International Brands. Like, how do you separate those two things when they actually are one and the same? So those are very big blurry lines, black box, I guess you could say, in terms of like the marketing expenses. How do you justify this, that, or whatever? What's just Dan's expenses? What is business expenses? I won't go into like an ex-leadership team member's lawsuit, but Curtis Heffernan, if you guys want to look up that name, he does have a pending lawsuit, I still believe, with Ignite and Dan Bilzerian, and just talking about a lot of like these kind of crazy expenses, some related party payments and things to some of Dan's businesses. And like I said, I'll stay out of like the emotional or hearsay type of things. And this is not a justification by any means, but I've been involved with a lot of private startups. And what I'll say is that a lot of times, rule number one in entrepreneurship, where you're supposed to keep personal finances and business finances separate, doesn't get followed all the time to 100%. In the case of Ignite, are some of these blurring lines between expenses and payments and things legal? Odds are they probably are. I think that in terms of like the business justification rules and things like that, though they might be legal, are they in the best interest for their shareholders? Maybe not. If you want to look at this in terms of the only reason why a lot of these shareholders are probably invested in the company is because they like Dan Bilzerian, they like his lifestyle. You can't not have that lifestyle and then not have a business like Ignite exist. So it's kind of like a catch-22 in terms of like, of this whole type of argument. And what I'll say is over the last year, if we look at this on a year-over-year perspective, a lot of the marketing and advertising expenses have been cleaned up. I think upwards of like $15 million in the first 9 months has been wiped off the books. They've been running their business a lot better. Have they been running it lean and mean to the level in which they need to be profitable yet? No, but I think that they've made huge strides in 2020 that looks like a much different business than the 2019 version of Ignite International Brands. Another key element here is just talking about influencer marketing and the idea, does this work? I think that you can look at Dan Bilzerian in Ignite International Brands, and it could be a case study for the influencer marketing, linear commerce trend that's happening in the age of Instagram. Social media influencers are becoming brands in themselves. They are media companies, media properties in themselves. They're looking to monetize that popularity, that influence in whatever way possible. They sell a number of consumer goods. The marketing strategy is quite simple. Everything surrounds Dan Bilzerian, his lifestyle. Ignite is really a personification of that lifestyle and just extensions of Dan Bilzerian. And the idea of like linear commerce or just connection between media and commerce and that line being shortened and everything, that is just getting started. But that doesn't mean that everything has the same value. And it doesn't mean that just because the marketing strategy seems easy to conceptualize, it actually is as easy to execute on. And I've been a part of, again, a ton of different brands in similar industries. And what I'll say is that social media influencers, when they are connected to the brand, they have all the elements aligned correctly, they can produce tons and tons of revenue for these businesses, not only their own, but for sometimes when they are sponsored or have some type of deal, strategic partnership deal with some of these brands, they drive millions and millions of dollars. You look at a following like Dan Bilzerian's and you think, it should be higher. Honestly, it should be higher. And there might be reasons that are outside of just his following and being able to convert his following with these products. Some of these products are just not for all of his following. And some of these are not legal or technically legal in some of the regions in which they are selling these products. I'm sure more Americans maybe would want to buy Ignite cannabis products if they were available nationwide and everything was legalized. I'm sure those numbers could be extrapolated and be much bigger, but it just take away all that and you look at the following, you look at also just the connected network following of just all the people that are involved, you would expect that sales number to be much bigger. And also, if you look at this from just how much marketing dollars that they've been able to throw at this business over the last year and a half, you would think to yourself that they'd be able to grow that top line revenue much stronger than where it's at today. So yes, influencer marketing works, but one is not like the other. It's not always the same level, and a lot of things need to go right, and some of those might be in control of Dan Bilzerian, some of them might not be in control of Dan Bilzerian. But since I keep talking about him, I think it also is just something important to mention that there is some key man risk that goes involved with this. I've mentioned this in terms of figurehead or influencer-led brands or just anything that's around a leader that's front-facing. If something goes wrong with Dan Bilzerian, odds are it will be detrimental or could be the end of Ignite International Brands. Now that could be something physical, and odds are, and hopefully it would not be something physical. The more likely outcome would be something around like socially driven cancel culture, something like that happening. Dan Bilzerian's lifestyle, like I said, is very controversial. It's very polarizing, and I talk a lot around how you need to segment the market, how you need to stand for something, how you need your personality to, in a way, kind of be polarizing. But as things change over time, culture changes, society changes over time, that lifestyle ebbs and flows in terms of popularity. So that has a lot of risk that's attached to it. And then the last key item that Ignite has mentioned time and time again in terms of their financial statements is around the COVID-19 effect. I kind of look at this in two ways, and normally don't look at COVID-19 effect in kind of two different ways when I'm mentioning it in these videos, but looking at it from a lifestyle perspective. Dan Bilzerian's lifestyle has been interrupted because of COVID-19. A lot of the things that make his lifestyle very attractive, a lot of the content that he creates around that lifestyle has been kind of restricted. Maybe he's still acted the same way, but maybe he's not posted as much as he could, or maybe the people that he would normally hang out with are not available as much as they normally would. You don't want to post a bunch of these things and create a bunch of blowback. I'm sure him over anybody else probably gives less of a fuck than anybody else about that stuff. But it's just something that at this point, even biggest followers would take a little bit of offense to it if they are stuck at home, not able to do things. Looking at this from the business perspective, to me, this isn't as clear cut of actually having an effect on Ignite. And for one, cannabis retailers have been overall thought of as essential retailers and essential services throughout the pandemic. Though maybe wholesale trade activities and merchandising cycles and things like that could have been interrupted. A lot of people have been getting through that. Other industries have gotten through that. Everybody's kind of gotten through that. You also have a lot of people pivoting and shifting to e-commerce. The one good thing about Ignite is that they have had direct-to-consumer and e-commerce for a while. They obviously have Dan Bilzerian and digital marketing strategies and tactics and the available networks to be able to still get their brand out there without having to have people see trade marketing, see retail placement marketing. Ignite does about 46% of their business online currently. Brightfield Group, that follows the CBD and cannabis market, has said this year, I think about 47% of sales went online. So everything kind of is aligning perfectly for Ignite. They've been able to stay with the market. And what I would say is they probably have an advantage over a lot of their competitors because they have a built-in audience. They have what we mentioned before with linear commerce. They have that line between media and commerce shortened compared to a lot of other people. So though it's easy to blame COVID-19, and they've continuously done that, I don't necessarily think that had much of an effect of why maybe Ignite has not grown in 2020 yet. I just want to end this piece of content on some final thoughts. It seems fairly clear that Ignite is nearing a breaking point if they do not continue to radically change their business. Without considering them being able to continuously raise capital, they are running out of time and they're running out of money. It seems that the enormous marketing machine that is Dan Bilzerian hasn't really lived up to the expectations currently. And like I mentioned before, that could be some things outside of his control. Along with that, leadership has kind of been a little bit delusional. Honestly, they've been talking about being cash flow positive. They've been mentioning how they're going to turn a profit here in 2020. They could essentially create some type of operating profit, maybe if they are able to increase their sales significantly in Q4. But it's hard to imagine few scenarios where this can become a reality. I do not want this piece of content to be seen as some smear campaign or negative towards Ignite or Dan Bilzerian. I have nothing against either one of them, and I actually have industry colleagues that do work at Ignite, so I hope for the best. I want them to succeed. I want the business to succeed. I want all businesses to succeed. I think there's a ton of opportunity for everybody. So hopefully leadership will make the right changes necessary to make Ignite as successful as I'm sure all of them thought it would be when it was created.
Thank you so much for watching this video. If you want to help support me, make sure you guys hit that thumbs up button on this video. If this is the first time you've been introduced to my videos, would love for you guys to be a part of my community by subscribing to my channel. I upload several videos just like this weekly, and if you guys want to connect further outside of this platform, I do include all of my social media links down below. I just want to thank you guys again for your time. Hopefully I gave you some value in return, and we'll see you guys on the next video.